This module will be all hands-on demo. And at the culmination of this module, we'll have our solutions images in an ACR, or Azure Container Registry. Note the URL on your screen and go there to find more video modules and even hands-on labs to help you be successful getting your offers working in the Azure Marketplace. Now, this course will pretty much be demo from here forward and primarily focused on technical implementation. Here's what you have to look forward to in this module. First, I'll create and configure an Azure Container Registry, or ACR. Then I'll come back to the desktop and run the demo application. Finally, I'll deploy the 2 images in my solution to the ACR created earlier. Let's start by creating and configuring an ACR in the Azure portal. The first step in our process is to create an Azure Container Registry. So we'll say create a resource and then search for Container Registry. And we'll select Microsoft's ACR, Azure Container Registry, to create. And I'll give it a new resource group to put it in. We'll go DS for David Star, ACR00. And I'll say OK to that. Additionally, I'll give it the same name, and then we'll use the Eastern US region. That's fine. And we don't need the features of standard ACR for our demo, so we'll just go ahead and use the basic one. And I'll just go from here all the way down to review and create. Now we wait for the ACR to deploy, and it's done. So we've got our new ACR. I'm going to go to it and come down now to access keys. And in access keys, I'm going to enable admin user. Now the reason for this will be made apparent later, but we'll need to log into this Azure Container Registry with these credentials. So I'm going to save the name of the ACR, the username, and a password that I'll use later in the course. Notice that right now it's an empty registry and we have no repositories. Well, you might think we'd be done at this point, but there is something else we have to do. We actually have to add a very special service principal to our ACR, giving it pull permissions such that the Azure Marketplace ACR will be able to then pull images from your ACR when it comes time to publish them. There are a few steps to this, and I'm going to walk you through them briefly. The first thing you need to do is create a new Active Directory service principal using this very special and unique identifier, which has been set aside for use by the marketplace. I've already run that command and I don't want to create the service principal twice. The next thing I'm going to do is go find the Azure ID of my ACR. Now notice that I'm using my name DSACR00, but I'm not including the entire server URL or path because it's Azure AZ. It already knows how to look up its own registries. So I'll hit that and I get my identity for my Azure registry. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'll actually clear the screen and create a very long command, which is AZ role assignment. So we're going to create a role assignment for the service principal we just created on scope and pass the ID of my ACR. We're going to give it the role of ACR pull. So we give it that RBAC role. Well, let's go ahead and execute that command. And we get back a set of JSON, which gives us a confirmation that we've got a service principal on resource group DSACR00. Here's the scope, which is our ACR. And the last thing we need to do is register a specific resource provider, in this case, Microsoft.Partner Center Ingestion, to my subscription. So I'm passing my subscription ID. And it just takes a moment for that command to run and we're done. This now gives permission to the Marketplace ACR to pull from mine. Now let's back up just a bit and run our application locally. Let's start by taking a very brief look at our incredibly simple application. It is one Python file, some templates, and a static file. And here's our Docker build file, which contains, as you can see, a dependency on Redis for backend storage. This is a deceptively simple application that just allows for voting on one of two options you put up on the screen, and we'll see it in action by the end of this demo. The first thing I'm going to do is create a network because I'm going to have two containers running at the same time that need to talk to each other. So I'll create my Docker network, and the next thing I'll do is pull down a Redis image to use. I'll pull the one on Alpine 316. And in many cases, I'll be speeding up these downloads for you where they take time for me. That was a really simple and fast one. The next thing I'm going to do is tag this image with the name of my ACR. And this will be the name of the repository that shows up. And this will be the version number of the first image that gets put into it. So let's go ahead and create that tag. And from here, let's get this up and running. So I'll use the ECNet network that we just created. Here's an environmental variable letting me bypass password, exposing a port, giving it a name and host name of voteback Redis, and using our recently tagged image. So let's go ahead and fire that up. And the next thing we'd like to do is build our solution. And so let's do a Docker build, tagging it with VoteFront, again, using the ACR name as the first part of our tag and ending in the version number of the application. So we'll let that Docker build run, and it finishes very quickly. Next thing I'm going to do is run our recently built image, and we'll kick it off. There it is. And now I should be able to see both images running, and I do. From here, I'm going to pop over to my browser, and let's pull up a new tab and hit our, let's see, local machine on port 8080, and there's our application running. You can actually see the ID of the container hosting the front end to this application. Notice that it starts with 9B Bravo 53. And if we look back at our command line, we can see NB53 is our front end. So everything's matching up there. I set my options as being able to vote between motorcycles and cars. Personally, I'll take a motorcycle every day. That's the full extent of the application. It's drop dead simple and straightforward, so it serves our purpose. As our last step in this module, let's push our solution's image up to the ACR we created. The first thing we'll do is log into our registry using Docker so that we can use Docker to push the images. And we get a little warning there. I am using some subpar security as part of this demo just to make things simpler. Now the first thing we'll do is push our backend image up. That takes just a moment. Good. And now I'll push the front end. Great, our front end image is up. Let's switch back over to our ACR in the portal and check out the repositories tab, in which we'll see that we now have two repositories, one for our backend, one for our front end images. And we go into our vote front repository. We can see that we've got one image in here. And if we click it, see the pull command for that image, and we can easily copy its digest. We now know all about creating and configuring an ACR for preparation to use with the Azure Marketplace. I ran the demo application you'll be seeing in the other modules of this course. Lastly, I pushed the solution's images up to the ACR created in the first step. Thank you for joining us for another video from Mastering the Marketplace, the learning library where technologists go to get their offer on the Microsoft Marketplace. For more videos, hands-on labs, and sample code, find us at aka.ms/masteringthemarketplace.